25 people in Taraba communal clash. Buhari condemns killings of 25 people in Taraba communal clash. And then private sector's COVID-19 donations, not cash, says federal government. Private sector's COVID-19 donations, not cash, says federal government. And let me see if there's one more story we can take from this day before we proceed to talking about the issues proper. Okay, I think that's about it. Though you have here unnecessary tug of war in River State, much ado about Soludu's 10 million naira donation to Anambra's COVID-19 account. And you also have stop playing politics with coronavirus. PDP tells Abdul Razak, because that must be for Kwara State. And that's it in this day newspaper. I've got Obedima here joining me. Obedima, good morning. Good to see you.
Anna, good morning.
So let's start with Emefiele. COVID-19 presents opportunity to transform Nigeria. It says here that the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, has said despite the damage the COVID-19 pandemic is causing nations around the world, it presents an opportunity to birth a new Nigeria. Emefiele, in a 27-page speech obtained by This Day yesterday, described the disruptions caused by the pandemic as an opportunity to re-echo a persistent message the CBN has been sending for a long time. The message, he said, was the need for Nigerians to start looking inwards as a nation to guarantee food security, high quality and affordable healthcare, and cutting-edge education for citizens. According to him, for a country of over 200 million people, projected to be almost 450 million in a few decades, we can no longer ignore repeated warnings about the dangers that lie ahead if we do not begin to depend largely on what we produce locally, because the security and well-being of our nation is contingent on building a well-diversified and inclusive economy. Emefiele noted that when he assumed office in June 2014, importation of fish, rice, wheat, and sugar alone consumed 1.3 trillion naira worth of foreign exchange, but the Apex Bank under his leadership took steps to reduce the amount. In line with the vision of President Muhammadu Buhari, CBN has indeed created several lending programs and provided hundreds of billions to smallholder farmers and industrial processors in several key agricultural produce. These policies are aimed at positioning Nigeria to become self-sufficient food producer, creating millions of jobs, supplying key markets across the country, and dampening the effects of exchange rates movement on local prices. This philosophy, according to Emefiele, has been the consistent theme of the CBN's policies over the last couple of years, just as he cited the restriction of access to foreign exchange from some items at its window. Emefiele said many times the bank has been accused of promoting protectionist policies. My answer has always been that leaders are first and foremost accountable to their own citizens. And if the vagaries of international trade threaten their well-being, leaders have to react by compelling some change patterns of trade to the greater good of their citizens. That is why, in response to COVID-19, we're strengthening the Nigerian economy by providing a combined stimulus package of about 3.5 trillion naira, and it's targeted measures to households, businesses, manufacturers, and healthcare providers. He said the measures were deliberately designed to support both the federal government's immediate fight against COVID-19 and also build a more resilient, more self-reliant Nigerian economy. We do not know what the world will look like after this pandemic. Countries may continue to look inwards, and globalization, and as we know it today, may be dead for a generation. Therefore, he stressed the need for Nigerians to support the federal government in its quest to deliver high-quality infrastructure, support large-scale production of staple and cash crops in the country, and develop the educational sector, among others. He also said the Apex Bank has designed a policy response timeline to guide the management of the crisis and help in rebooting the economy. Abidima, let me get your thoughts here. He pretty much thinks this is a period for us to transform Nigeria.
Well, I think last time I came here, that was exactly the expression I made, that we begin now to redefine everything about our nation and think of actually restructuring the nation to position this nation for greater socio-economic development. You see, after the virus, there will be a kind of global economic competition. And unfortunately, we are not in a position to compete. The infrastructure is not there, the capacity is not there. And it will still put us down. So the only thing now, the government is to use this period to do away with the Kwasha federal system of government to a true federal system of government, where the federating units will now be allowed to a kind of self-determine certain things, especially natural resources. Then it will engender internal economic competition, where states now will manage their resources and they run with it. But if the present structure we have is what we envisage should be in place after the COVID-19 pandemic, even if you pump $20 trillion into the system, it will yield no result. So the people who are resisting restructuring should give way for this restructuring. In fact, this is the natural thing that is happening now for the restructuring to come in place. If not, Nigeria will find itself also in a modern economy operating a kind of backward and primitive
Emefiele
economy.
says ever since he came into office, this is along the lines of what he has pursued. He's always tried to push in policies that will cause us to be more self-reliant, because he says at the point where we're going to globalization as we used to know it will definitely change. Most countries will be looking inwards, and he says that it's about time Nigeria start looking inwards. But policies that they have been putting out in the past was tended to drive us in that direction.
What is the result? What is that come of that policy? Hitherto. In fact, our nakedness have been exposed.
Yeah, but I mean, if he says if he says that policies he put out there help checkmate importation of fish, rice, wheat, and sugar, if he has seen a reduction, he says before we used to pump about 1.3 trillion naira to do that. And he says if he has reduced that means obviously, hold on, because I don't think the need for these things will have changed. If we needed those things, the need is still there. So that means there are different companies now who are locally based, who are producing something along those lines that Nigerians are now beginning to buy from.
Yeah, in terms of employment, what is the gain? What are we seeing?
We can't see it cannot skyrocket to the point where you're going to see visible figures to that point.
Yeah.
But I know that if somebody suddenly opened a small rice scale farm and he has employed 2 or 3 people, it might not be something we might see directly now on a larger scale when we speak about it.
Let me say that all that has gone to the drain now. We are going to start from the beginning.
That's where my argument with you. I don't think it has gone to the drain. I think there has been a start. And I think that what we should do is consolidate on that and move forward.
The coronavirus has brought everything down. So, and now
it hasn't brought down the initiation that was already in place.
Initiation that I'm telling you that with the kind of structure we have, it will still not gel.
All right, got your thoughts on that. Emmanuel Ndukwe, good morning, good to have you. I don't know whether you caught up with this argument earlier on.
Good morning, Annie. Good morning, Nigeria. I want to say that I just overheard what you were reading, Emefiele. For me, I do not agree that everything has been eroded by coronavirus.
This pandemic.
An initiative established will remain. And that is why when even Obidima is talking about structure, yes, there's need for restructuring. But what he said, that they were importing this lot of fish, they were importing whatever. Now, it has reduced. It shows that there were improvement. Even if you like, the pandemic came in, perhaps to stall it. It doesn't mean it's been erased.
I agree. This is where I agree with you. All right. Moving on, let's get to another story. With 30 new cases in one day, Oyewole foresees prolonged lockdown. It says here, incidents rise to 373 with 99 discharged and 11 dead. Targets testing capability of 4,000 daily. Over 9,000 contacts have been traced. Olawale with the number of COVID-19 cases rising by 30 in a single day yesterday, bringing the tally to 373. Panelists on an Arise TV program, including Professor of Virology and former Vice Chancellor, Redeemers University, Professor Tomori Oyewole, have warned that the nation may be in a prolonged shutdown. The panelists who spoke during the Arise News Channel Global Briefing on COVID-19, a program on Arise Television, described the Nigeria's testing rate for the pandemic as poor, warning that with the slow pace, the country's lockdown might last for several months. President Muhammadu Buhari had on Monday signed the COVID-19 regulations number 2, extending the lockdown in the Federal Capital Territory, Lagos and Ogun states, which started on March 30th, 2020, by another 14 days. But the World Health Organization has said countries should consider protecting human health first while making decisions on whether to lift restrictions or impose them. Lagos State government has also discharged 8 more COVID-19 patients from its infectious disease hospital in Yaba and listed 1 more patient as dead. State government has also identified 119 people with COVID-19 symptoms during its house-to-house search that has so far covered a total of 18,000 households in communities. The pandemic has also claimed the life of the chairman of the defunct Sosoliso airline, Mr. Victor Okwuemesi, who died in London. We'll just stop on this part here. Oyewole says the case definition protocol of the federal government made it difficult for NCDC to test a high number of Nigerians who have been clamoring to have their samples tested for the disease. He said the NCDC said you must have come down with 1 or more symptoms of the disease before it can be tested. The problem with this case definition is that there are a lot of people who would not come down with symptoms even though they are infected. So he says, look, I see a prolonged lockdown.
Yeah, exactly. Being that they are noticed, so you don't know a number of people coming. But then the angle that is a snag for me is that this one is said that some people are not coming with symptoms. Certainly, how would you test them? Is it possible to test everybody? But I know they can improve at the rate they are going. But to test every Nigerian, I'm not seeing the possibility, especially with our development along the lines of acquisition of equipment and all that. But what did they say? Is it 6,000 or so they were testing? The NCDC. No, it's too poor. It's too poor. How can we trail behind Ghana and South Africa and all that? So let them improve. But testing every Nigerian, I do not know. Even if it's established in this River State to say test every citizen of River State, I doubt if they can go wrong. Go round.
All right. Let me get to Obedima.
I think the method they used recently to do this yellow fever vaccination, why not they also deploy that strategy? Even go to churches, going to marketplaces, going to parks, to ensure. The only thing there is that I still believe that the government has not mobilized our medical team for this purpose. That's my own belief. Countries of the world are even calling back those that have retired. So they will join hands. Is it to pay these people the money? That is the issue. We are getting equipment. We are being for individuals and the international donors. And this equipment, like I listened to the chairman of or the director general of the NCDC yesterday night. He said, yes, they have this enough to test about 1,500 a day, but they cannot even reach there because there is still some issue. There are some issues. So, which means they can't test up to 1,000 a day. So, and in a population of nearly 200 million people, and we are having that kind of number being tested every day, how long? That's what even the advanced countries are saying and begin to carry their citizens off Nigeria. Because they know that when this thing goes out of control, Nigeria don't have the ability and the capacity to manage it. And it may affect their citizens. They are watching this thing. We know that, the thing they are reporting, because of lack of our capacity, the number is far, 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 far more than that. I listened to, day before yesterday, I listened to the program here of a mega that traveled from Lagos and contacted to Kaduna and contacted from the bus he entered.
No, he doesn't know that it's from the bus or from Lagos. But
the point there is that the number of people in that bus
most likely have contacted it. Yes. I mean, Lagos says here that in their house-to-house checking in communities, they've checked 119,000 communities, households, and in those they've gotten 119 that have symptoms. So only God knows whether the symptoms will come out positive or negative.
So the state government, the local government, the federal government, I don't see them even training personnel for this
Well,
test.
federal government said they've trained 7,000 people.
It's very poor.
I agree with you. It's
very
poor compared to the figures that we have here.
No?
All right, let's move on from that story. There's another here, but I do agree with this prof though. I foresee a long.
Lockdown.
The implication of that.
I foresee a prolonged lockdown.
I do.
I was speaking to somebody yesterday and was like, oh, because I want to do this at the very first week of May. I said, well, you're very optimistic. I said, you're very optimistic to think that we'll bounce back by May. I'm happy if we do, but I don't see that happening.
And the implication of that, there'll be high crime rates.
I don't know. I'm not looking at implications. I'm looking at the fact that there will be prolonged lockdown.
Well, people are getting worried. And
moving on. Buhari excited as EU donates 21 billion naira to Nigeria. The European Union yesterday donated 50 million euros, an equivalent of 21 million naira, to support Nigeria's fight against COVID-19, to the excitement of President Muhammadu Buhari. This came as the United States President Donald Trump yesterday announced an immediate cut of funding to the World Health Organization while his administration reviews the United Nations agency's handling of the coronavirus. The move followed weeks of Trump's escalating attacks on WHO, accusing it of bungling the response and failing to communicate the disease's threat. US contributes more than any other country to WHO at more than $400 million per year, cutting off funds to the group, which has a $4.8 billion annual budget, will be a major blow to the organization as it conducts vaccine trials, distribute test kits, and advises governments around the world. EU Ambassador Kelty Carlson, who led the delegation to the State House in Abuja to make the presentation to the president, described the fund, which was said to have been channeled through the UN COVID-19 Basket Fund, as the largest single contribution and support that EU is providing anywhere outside Europe. The ambassador said the gesture was a swift response to Nigerians' call for assistance and a demonstration of EU's partnership with Nigeria. We heard your call for assistance, and EU has swiftly reacted as a demonstration of our true partnership. A statement by the president's media advisor, Mr. Femi Adesina, said Carlson congratulated Buhari for a very powerful address to the nation last night, adding, indeed, the current situation is no joke, and we wish to commend you for taking bold and necessary measures. Carlson stated that the EU is still mobilizing other sources of funding, while the Union had already paid 1.2 million euros to UNICEF, and goods purchased through such funding are expected in the country soon.
Well, the president is who he is, the president of the nation. I'm not the president, but I'm happy also for the donation. You see, the problem I have with donations is that it's very easy to do. At least the donors could give very easily. But how will the fund be
The implementation of those funds.
That is just the problem. Because you know that the ones Dangote or Taylor, the rest of them gave 1 billion. It's not easy for any individual, even though they have that cash. But they gave 1 billion. And in my view, I was saying that government should distance itself from that, particularly the utilization of that fund. Because if they set up a committee that will be accountable to government and Nigerians later on, it will be nice. But once they hold these funds, the way people have been talking, whether they put some aside or not, it will always be looked at that way. 21 billion is enough to do certain things, not completely all that is needed, but let them utilize it well. If they want to set up a committee, fine. If they want to disburse it themselves, fine.
Committee. You know where I stand with committees. I keep saying, with Nigeria, anything to cut off the middleman, I'm for it. Because we've seen how middlemen in several committees always take a chunk of whatever is available before it gets to those who dearly need it. I don't know. Let me get your thoughts first before I say something.
Both the federal and state is quite worrisome that even the committees are peopled with politicians. So politicians cannot even deliver. Well, the issue of donation from EU is a very welcome development, and it's also a relief to the nation if it will be properly managed. But EU, in donating that, would have also been involved in monitoring how this money is used. Like what WHO is doing of recent in Nigeria, these public health issues, they ensure that they are part of disbursing this money, not leaving it entirely to government agencies because of the experiences or they had in the past, where they'll bring in this money and they will not see the kind of result of bringing this money to the country. EU would have also done that, because except they are bringing it in form of equipment and other material needs, but if it is cash, my fear is that Nigerians will not feel the impact of it. So I will call on the EU. It's not late now. They just made this donation. I'll call on the EU to be part of monitoring how this money is dispensed. If not, it may not reach or go to anywhere.
All right. Yeah, I pretty much agree with you, but I don't know whether, this is something that the EU will even want to hint at and say, okay, we're donating this money, but we're going to sit with you again and see how you disburse the money. I think
I win funds.
I don't think that is something, but because WHO has centers everywhere within the nation, so it's easy to use that as a platform by which they can.
EU can use that facility.
EU is not working with WHO. EU is a different community on its own. So, and then if they are going to say, we're going to go through WHO to start, it will seem as if it's an affront on them. They said, look, we heard your cry, we brought money for you, or we brought funding for you.
If you mismanage it, it's your own.
It's all you, but we did help. But I agree with you. The same way you're saying, we need people who can ensure that these monies or fundings in whatever manner it's brought does get to the people who deserve it. If it means that we have EU breathing on the neck of our leaders, that will have been more appreciated, because we've seen how funds in the past have been misused. They say the president is excited about this. Well,
we're all excited.
It's 21 billion naira.
Would he have cried?
It's 21 billion naira. But you see where my fear is. Just like you mentioned, you don't know whether this is cash or this is in material form. Because just recently, the federal government says private sector's COVID-19 donations, not cash. So the federal government yesterday clarified that donations by the private sector towards fighting COVID-19 were not in cash, but in the form of development of healthcare infrastructure, and therefore could not be shared or used to provide palliatives during the lockdown. Minister of Information and Culture Alhaji Lai Mohammed made this clarification yesterday when he featured on the radio program Politics Nationwide, monitored by the news agency of Nigeria. Mohammed was responding to comments by Nigerians requesting that part of the billions of naira being donated by public-spirited individuals and private institutions should be shared with the people to cushion the effect of the extended lockdown. The minister said the Presidential Task Force for the Control of COVID-19 was neither with the money nor in control of it and could not share a penny from the fund to anyone. He said the private sector donors are not giving any cash to the federal government, and they have made this clear to the people. They said they will support the fight against the pandemic by asking government where they want healthcare infrastructure to be provided. What government has done is to request them to build a 30-bed isolation ward and a 10-bed intensive care unit in each state in the country. In addition, the federal government has given them a list of equipment and commodities that will be needed. Therefore, the issue of using their donations to provide palliatives cannot arise. Mohammed added that in addressing the issue of palliatives, every country adopted a peculiar strategy that was workable and acceptable. He said Nigeria was leading and remains the best in the whole of Africa in the area of provision of palliatives to citizens as the world battles the scourge. The minister said the federal government has taken a lot of measures to cushion the effects of COVID-19 on Nigerians, including food distribution